talking with Dr. John Zink, who is the science mind behind 7 Keto, which is a terrific supplement. I wonder if you could tell us, first, and you've been working on this for 13 to 15 years, right?
Yeah, our company's been involved for quite some time, probably, back into the late 1980s when our company started working on it.
And along with that, you've been doing testing the whole time. I mean, you continue to work on the value of it and how it operates.
We do.
Tell us a little bit about how you learn about something originally, what you do to find out if it's something you should be producing, and knowing the ethics of your company that you should be making available to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then how you really go about seeing that it's getting into the right channels where the people that need it and can understand it are going to be able to be aware of it.
Yes. Good questions all. Humanetics, our company, started out as a pharmaceutical company, and even though we've worked on these natural ingredients, our company philosophy is to continue to develop anything we discover just as if it was a drug, whether or not it is a drug candidate or whether it's going to fall more into the dietary ingredient category. So our research is, I think, far and above most often what you see for dietary ingredients and dietary supplements. So our process, which pretty rarely varies from what's the standard is in the pharmaceutical industry, is we go through a discovery process. So either we'll acquire new ingredients from other researchers. In the case of 7 Keto, its utility was actually discovered by Dr. Henry Lardy, who's now deceased, but he was a scientist over at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he's been working with DHEA almost, most of his professional career, probably over 50 years. And the process that we use and that he used is that, he knew that DHEA had certain qualities. He also knew that DHEA was not classically a hormone, since it didn't have its own receptor. So what he did was he synthesized 150 different metabolic derivatives of DHEA, and then he painstakingly went about testing each one of those derivatives to see if it was the same as DHEA, different than DHEA, had affinities for receptors that DHEA didn't have. So that process went on, financed by our company, for years, maybe 2 or 3 years. And the outcome of that research was that he found that 7 Keto, which was what we call a 7-position oxygenated derivative of 7 Keto, of DHEA, was the most active of any of the ones that he'd been looking at. So then once you identify your candidate, we call it, then we take the candidate first into toxicology testing. We make sure that it's not going to be harmful to probably 2 different species of animals. We learn what the LD50 dose is, which is the lethal dose for 50% of the animals, which is a fairly common practice. We look at their lab tests in the animals and see if we're obviously having any effect that we weren't expecting. And then once you move on from tox, then you move on to efficacy testing in animals. So in our case, if we think it's a weight loss ingredient, we go to weight loss studies in animals and see if it actually has that effect. And then once you've convinced that your animal studies look positive and your compound is safe, then you can move on to clinical testing, which is testing in humans to see if what you saw in animals is what you're going to see in humans. And all along the way, there's safety evaluations, because that's number one for our company. You don't want to be hurting anyone or putting anyone at risk, particularly in the dietary supplement and dietary ingredient category. So we very carefully, even when we get to clinical trials, are looking at adverse events, numbers, kinds of adverse events. We look at changes in their lab work, things like that. We do their vital signs, check their blood pressures, their pulses, respirations, things like that. So by the time we're done with clinical testing, we know a lot about the compound, number one. We know probably better than anyone whether it's safe or not. And hopefully the effect we were looking for has been borne out in the animal studies and also in the human trials.
Thank you.